Hey, what's up guys? This is a short video on how to graph linear functions using a table. So I'm going to do number 8 and it says f of x. Keep in mind that f of x is the same thing as a y. So when I say f of x equals 4x minus 12, so you guys see the function here, you can also say y equals 4x minus 12. Now when you guys have a y here, y equals 4x minus 12, the idea is that you guys need to find the y value. Since the function doesn't have a y, it has an f of x, we need in the table that we are going to construct in order to graph the function, and this is a linear function, so we are going to have a line. Instead of having a y, we are going to have f of x. But this is the same thing as a y. So let me just put a y next to it. I'm going to put here an arrow, same thing as a y. So it's a lot easier for me to change that to a y when you guys have this equation here, because I'm going to substitute the numbers that are given to me. Notice the table, we do have values of x. So I'm going to substitute each value one at a time into the function with the y, and I need to find the y. Now, when I do find the y, that y is going to go in the first box or under the box that corresponds to the number you substitute. So, for example, I'm going to show you guys the first one, negative 5. I'm going to substitute a negative 5 into the x, and I need to do the work in order to find what is the y value. So let me substitute that for you guys right now. So if you look at this part of the screen here, I already have the negative 5 in the x. So we have the 4, x becomes a negative 5, and the minus 12 becomes a minus 12. Doesn't become, it stays as a negative 12. Now you guys are going to simplify this. You guys can use a calculator, you guys can do it by hand. So I'm just going to do it by hand and give you guys the value of the y. And I got for that y a negative 32. So this number, the y, is going to go into the first box because that is the x value that I substitute into the function. So my first y value will be negative 32. Now this, guys, is for the function of x. Notice here we have f of x. F is the name of the function. F of x, the first one, when x equals negative 5, the y value is negative 2. Now the bad thing about tables is that you guys need to substitute each number one at a time, and you guys need to find the value for that, the y value for that number. So that's the long way you guys have to do when you guys are constructing a table. A table can take time to construct. So next time you guys will have a shortcut to graph lines, but right now for this part of the worksheet, I want you guys to use a table. So let's go ahead and look at the next one. The next number is a negative 3. So instead of having a negative 5 here in the function, I'm going to substitute a negative 3, and then I'm going to substitute and I'm going to evaluate for the y value. So let me do that right now. And when I substitute that number negative 3 into the function, notice I get negative 12 minus 12, and that's negative 24. So that's the number that's going to go under the negative 3 because we substituted a negative 3, and we are saying when the x value is negative 3, which is another name we can use is domain. When the domain is negative 3, the range is negative 24. Some other names that we can also use is your input is negative 3. Your output is negative 24. So when you guys substitute, you input a negative 3, you get out an output of negative 24. Now you guys are going to have to do each one of them one by one. You substitute into the function, and then you guys simplify. So I'm going to give you guys those numbers here, and then we are going to graph the line. So you notice that I already constructed the table. You guys have the y values under the x values, and you guys have f of x, which are your outputs, and you guys also have your inputs, or the values of x's. Now you guys are going to graph each point one at a time, and when you guys graph the points, you are going to connect to make a line. That's why this is called a linear function, because you guys will have a line. How do you graph? Well, remember that a point is when you guys have the x and the y coordinates. So this point right here, the first point, negative 5, negative 32. I'm going to change that table into order pairs because you guys are used to looking at the parentheses with the x and the y. And I'm going to put the x on the left side and the y on the right side because that is how we write down the points. So let me just write that down for you guys. In parentheses, we do have the x and the y. X always goes first. So let me write down the points for you in order pairs. So now you guys see the order pairs on the left side of the screen. I have the -5, -32, the next one, the next one, the next one, and the next one. I also graphed the points on my coordinate plane. Notice that I have the -5, -32 here. The next one, -3, -24, 0, -12, 1, -8, 2, and -4. Now, in order to connect the points, you guys can use a ruler, you guys can use a pencil, something that has a straight edge, and you guys can use that as a ruler. So I'm just going to use a ruler here, and I'm going to connect the points. You guys will see that the line is going to be pretty straight, but if you guys don't have a really straight line, that's fine, guys. It's okay. All I want you guys to do is know that you need to connect the points, and you guys have a line. So my linear function is right there. Notice that the line is going up from left to right. We'll talk about slope later on, but you guys need to know what is the direction of the line, what is the slope of the line, and how to graph the function. In this video, I'm just showing you guys how to graph a function using a table, and it is very time consuming. It can be time consuming. So later on, you guys will learn different shortcuts to graph a linear function without a table. But let's go ahead and look at another one, just one more, and then you guys can try this at home. So number 7. Number 7, you guys have a different function. The function here is -4 minus x. Notice that the x is on the other side of the function. It's at the end of the function. If you look at number 8, the x is before the constant. This here is very normal or very usual to have in a function. You guys have the x before the constant. That's what we call standard form. This one is also correct, but the order is not the same as the standard form. It works the same way. You guys need to substitute the number into the x, and then you guys need to find the f of x value or the y value. So I'm going to substitute -3 into the x, and then I'm going to find that number, and then I'll do the next one. I'll do the first one, and then I'll show you guys the values for the next y values. So you guys notice that I substitute into the function f of x. I change that to y because I like to see the y, but it is the same thing. They are equal. F of x equals y. And I'm going to substitute the -3 into the x. So notice that I already have the -3 in the x. So here's the x minus x. I do have the minus right there, and I substitute a -3. You guys need to be careful with double negatives, because when you guys have those double negatives, these two negatives, that's why it's called double, becomes positive. So you guys are going to have y equals -4 plus 3. And the y equals -1 in this case. So my point is at -3, -1. When you guys substitute the -2 here, you are going to get double negatives, so that turns positive. When you guys substitute the -1 here, that's going to be double negative. It's going to turn positive. When you guys substitute a 0, that is not going to be a double negative because 0 doesn't have a negative. So you guys will have a -0, and I can tell you guys right now, -4 minus 0, well, that is -4. So I know what that is, right? And the next one is a +1. So when you guys substitute a 1 here, you guys have the -4 minus 1, not double negative, so it's not going to turn positive. And we can actually do that right now. -4 minus 1 is -5 right here. So I'm going to do the next two, and I'll write those down so you guys can have them on the table. And you guys see those, we have a -2 and a -3 for when x equals -2, y equals -2, when x equals -1, y equals -3. So I'm going to plot the points, and I'm going to connect the points in order to make my function. And you guys can see the line on the screen. We have the points right here, -3, -1, -2, -2, -1, -3, 0, -4, and 1, -5. Notice that when I connect the points, it makes a line. Every single graph that you guys have on this worksheet must be a line because we are graphing linear functions. Now there's a lot of functions, not linear functions. There's a lot of different functions. So you might have a line, that's a linear function. You might have a curve, so it has a different name. One curve might be a U shape, so that's a quadratic function. Another curve might be a cubic function, so they have different names. But you guys are learning, will learn in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, different functions and have to graph those functions, okay? But right now, Algebra 1, in this worksheet, you must have a line. If you guys connect the points and they do not make a line, you did a mistake. Go back, check your work, fix your mistake, and then you guys try again, right? So this is just a review for linear functions, how to graph them with the table. I want you guys to practice. I want you guys to try. And if you guys like my videos, go ahead and hit that like button. You can also subscribe so you guys can get my notifications. Turn on your notifications so you guys know when I have new videos. And I hope you guys are well. And I'll see you guys later.